there's so many real estate agents acting like receptionists, okay? So once they realize they can outsource all of this stuff to an executive assistant, which is what I do now, essentially they free up between 15 to 30 hours a week of their time back. A lot of agents forget how long they've been doing something that it's so simple to them. If you don't document it, putting it into an SOP and record a training video on how to do it, it's like the blind leading the blind.
At some point you realize I can learn to do this all myself, or I can trust the person who I can pay to do it for me. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Remington Ramsey. We are a top 5% global podcast because you share this with your friends. So thank you. If you get one thing out of this show, I hope you will think of someone that you can send it to and send him the Juan Carlos Barreneche episode from Orlando, Florida. Welcome to the show, Juan Carlos.
I am really, really excited and thankful to be honest. Thanks for having me, brother.
I like your background. It's got all your favorite books back there. I got to get you mine so you can display the king of all real estate books. But you and I are like-minded. We spent a lot of time together on a couple projects, but I was excited to have you on to share your story because it's very unique in that you went from 0 to 100 million in real estate sales very quickly and then found a way after netting $1 million in sales annually to remove yourself altogether from the day-to-day by the age of 29. And so a common, misnomer is that real estate is a sellable business that you can retire. It's very challenging to do so, yet you figured out how to do it in your 20s. So just to give everybody kind of a teaser of where we're going, I think that's phenomenal. But tell us your story. You haven't always been in Orlando. You started in New York.
Yeah, so I'll take you back to day one. Day one starts, we could probably go back to like 2013, right? I'm in college. I'm studying in my dorm room. I'm thinking I'm going to be a doctor this entire time. And I'm reading this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad for the very first time. And basically my entire life flashes before me. And I'm like, you know what? If I keep going down this path of wanting to graduate college, go to medical school, go to residency, achieve my specialty, and I basically come out as a doctor like 10 years from now, not only am I going to be $1 million in student loan debt, but I'm going to have to go out of my way to basically rebuild a business and do all these things. And then I just find myself working into my 50s and the 60s. And it just wasn't what I wanted, right? So the Rich Dad, Poor Dad kind of opened my eyes up to this whole real estate world. And end of, like I said, 2015, instead of me graduating and going to med school, instead I graduate and I go to Keller Williams. I get my real estate license. So I get licensed in 2016. I start out in the real estate world. But then I'm kind of hit with that reality. Like it really wasn't what it cut out to be. That whole book was about financial freedom and investing and cash flow. But all I see was like working and grinding away and hustle culture. And I saw all these agents in my office and I was like, how long have you guys been doing this? And they were like 30 years. We got 3 decades. And I'm like, that sounds terrible. And for me, it was a matter of like, I don't want to be you guys. Like I could have just been a doctor and worked 30 years. Like, is there anyone here that's actually building a business and like having this thing run on their own? And they're like, oh no, like you're going to have to like go speak to someone on a national level. So that's exactly what I did. I called up the president of MAPS Coaching at the time. His name is Sean Kokoska. I'm sure you're familiar with who he is. But he used to run MAPS for all of Keller Williams International. And I basically called him up and I was like, hey, Sean, you don't know me through a hole in the wall. I'm a 23-year-old from Queens, New York. Can you please do me a favor and like walk me through this process and what I have to do to scale a business? And pretty much he was like, Juan, I don't take on clients, but I'll make an exception for you. I'm actually starting my own coaching company. Let's see what you have. So I gave him all the money in my pocket. It was a lot of money. I had to pay him an hourly rate. But Sean basically walked me through that Gary Keller Red Book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And it basically described the model of not just how to scale your business, but how to build it in a way where it actually operates without you being there. And the two biggest things that I realized was systems and staff. And that's exactly what I started to apply for my business. And then pretty much I started building out a team. So by 2018, I had a team. From 2018 to 2023, I built that team up to $100 million a year in sales by 2023. And then I had my midlife crisis and I realized, you know what? I am way, way too far ahead and way too young to be holding the secret in. Let me start teaching other agents how to do the same exact thing I just did.
You did something on a much quicker scale that most people take twice as long, if not 3 times as long to do. And one of those things is get tired of selling homes way quicker. I do think that there's some of the agents that you were talking about that have been in the business for 30 years that really enjoy it. Like they enjoy selling houses and they'll never quit because that's what's fun for them. They get a rush from that. But I've heard over and over again a lot of people who say what you're saying, which is I can't stop because of my lifestyle. I don't know how to do that because of systems and staffing, which ironically is actually what you're super passionate about. Because flash forward to the end of the episode, we're going to talk about what you're doing now, because as you took yourself out of real estate, you're still collecting a paycheck. I think you told me in the pre-show, it's upwards of like $300,000, not even touching it just because of your downline, which is super impressive. But it's freed you up to actually spend time on your passionate side hustle, which is now the full hustle. And that's something that I think most people really struggle to do. And you did it by the age of 29. So you met with Sean. Diana Kokoska was on this show a few months ago, by the way. She did a great job. Actually, it was around Christmas time because I remember she had a really funny Christmas story. But she's doing really well. She just came out with a book. Great family. And so he taught you how to do that. Flash all the way back to when you were reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You attribute a lot of your actions and your thoughts to certain books. Was it truly just reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which was the light bulb enough for you to even decide to get into real estate?
So the light bulb was reading the book. However, the transformation happened when I started doing that deep dive or going into the rabbit hole of consuming more information. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad led me to biggerpockets.com. Biggerpockets.com led me to all these forums for conferences, events, and seminars where I could learn more about real estate investing. Learning more about real estate investing got me more interested in getting my license. Getting my license got me more interested in learning more about the business behind actually building a team. So for me, it was like one thing led to the other. And although that book was kind of like the very beginning of it, a lot of it was fluff in the sense that they don't actually lay out the step-for-step process on what to do. It was very inspirational. It kind of opened up my eyes, but it didn't really actually give me the action plan. And the more I started digging, the more I realized that there wasn't an action plan out there to help agents go from $0 to $1 million a year. And even if you did read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, it's a great book in theory, but actually applying that book requires you to learn things when it comes to software and systems and workflows and staffing. And that wasn't in the book. So yes, to answer your question, like I said, everything I do now is to let realtors think less. It's to, instead of them having to go out there and figure it out or me just coach them and tell them to do something, no, how about we actually implement the strategies and the systems and the staff for them? And that way they can just focus on what they do best, which is selling.
Where do most people get tripped up? Is it the fact that they don't know what to do, they don't spend enough time figuring out what to do, or they know what to do and they're not willing to do it? Is it all of them? Which one is it?
I broke it down into 3 phases. The first phase is from $0 to $100,000 in GCI. The most common problem I found is administrative handoff. They're still doing their emails. They're still checking their inbox. They're still replying back to people that are reaching out to them. They're going out of their way to manage their own calendar. They're scheduling. They're coordinating showings. Like, you are way worth much more than whatever someone is paying you to go out there and schedule an appraisal or an inspection. And like, there's so many real estate agents acting like receptionists. Okay. So once they realize they can outsource all of this stuff to an executive assistant, which is what I do now, essentially they free up between 15 to 30 hours a week of their time back. And once they get that back, well, now they break into the next barrier, which is between 100K to upwards to like $500,000 a year. Once they get to this point, it's a matter of like, okay, cool. We have an assistant that's doing all of this stuff, but I don't really have a consistent lead generation system in place. How can I go out there and set up a system to have someone making cold calls for me? Or how can I start spending money into marketing to start driving inbound leads? And how can I start working on my branding and my marketing to basically go out of my way to increase the likelihood of someone wanting to work with me? Once they're able to fix that system, at that point, they broke past $500,000 a year. It's hiring a little bit more staff. And now they have, like I said, a good 3-person team to scale to $1 million a year.
So you did that, and you realize after getting to the heights of real estate success, which you did probably in your mid-20s, that you're kind of over it. You don't need the trophies anymore. And now it's about what you enjoy doing and making the dollar. And I said, what I think is interesting about you is you made those actions, and half the time it takes most people to realize, I'm done doing this. I want to do what makes me happy. And for you, staffing became the big thing. I think coaching and staffing were like the avenues where you're like, these are my side hustles. Now I'm going to make it my full hustle. But you chose staffing as a space where you wanted to live. So you created Gold Bar Staffing. Were you still selling homes when you created that?
No, I was completely out of production. I got out of production at 28, 29. And then from there, which was about 3 years ago, I started the coaching company. Now, the issue with the coaching company is although I had the blueprint to scale the business and the blueprint to hire the assistants and to implement the software and the systems and all of that stuff, is when you consult someone and tell them like kind of like what to do, the issue is they just don't have enough time to go out there and do it. And that was the whole issue. Like I kept running into it. They were like, Juan, your coaching is amazing. I love everything you're talking about, but I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. And I just kept telling them, it's not that you don't have time. It's that you don't have the right priorities in place. But then I took a deep look inside their business and no, they actually didn't have time. Like once they factored in church and once they factored in their family and once they factored in their personal and working out and going to the gym and getting enough sleep and eating and cooking food and doing all of that stuff, like heck, that was a full-time job, 30 hours a week just to survive. And then you throw in the open houses, the realtors, the inbox, the email, the calendar, the showings, the inspections, the appraisal. There literally was no time. So I was like, you know what? Let me take a different approach at this. I read a really incredible book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And it basically talks about outsourcing and delegation and hiring someone to do stuff for you. And that book is amazing, except once again, it's just a book. It's just theory. You still have to hire, train, and staff that person and get them to take things off your plate. So I said, let me just make that my focus. Let me go out there and identify the biggest problem in real estate, which is realtors don't have time. And let me help them buy back their time. But instead of them having to hire the person and then how to train them and now have to manage them and pay them and hold them accountable, let me do that for you. So it's a complete white glove concierge staffing service. I understand the problem because I scaled my business to $3 million a year. I know how to fix their problem. And we don't just give them an assistant to go out there and help them. We help them build a standard operating procedure, the SOP, that is specific to their business. So if your problem at that moment is design, marketing, doing anything that has to do with your funnels, your landing pages, we build out your SOPs just the way you like doing that stuff. And then we hand it off to the person. And then vice versa, if your problem is more administrative, like emails and calendar and reservations and stuff like that, we build out those SOPs and then train your assistant on those specific SOPs.
You've got a couple of Hormozi books in the background, and I'm a Alex Hormozi fan. I think his content's really great. And he talks about a concept that many influencers touch on, which is why you would put out freemium and free content to attract people to your paid content. And I think you've applied this in your business where it's like coaching, showing people how to do something better. Like this podcast is free. Listening to this show is free. And us positioning ourselves as people who know how to do the thing and sharing what's worked for us and having an opportunity to sell somebody the coaching that shows them how to do it. And then there's a tier of person who says, okay, that's all great. Can you just do it for me? And then having the product or service where you can just do it for them. But there's a tier to that. And I think it's pretty brilliant because you use free content. And this is something that can be applied if you're a realtor listening to the show, if you're a vendor listening to the show. Like if you're a realtor and you start posting about real estate and educating, like it's education based. And it's like, this is what you need to know about buying a house in Indianapolis, Indiana. Well, I could, as a consumer, take that and be like, I got this. I'm going to do it. But what most people will do is feel more educated, but then want more from that person and they want to buy. And they're like, you know what? After I've learned how complicated this is from your videos, you're really entertaining. Can you just do this for me? Like that whole hook, that freemium hook is fascinating. So what have you learned in your business, both in real estate and your education? You put out a lot of education about staffing. What have you learned about that tiered approach?
Basically, if someone wanted to go out of their way to staff someone, there is a lot they would have to do to get a really good quality hire. The first one is they would have to review hundreds of applications. For every 120, 150 applications that come in, we only hire one person. So immediately, if you're someone thinking like, oh, I could just go hire a random person, well, good luck. Like it really is a needle in a haystack and you're like searching for gold. Like good quality talent is very hard to come across and you're going to have to filter through hundreds of people just to find it. So just that alone, you're spending dozens of hours going through applications, setting up interviews. Some of them are ghosting you. Some of them are showing up. You have to confirm the interviews. You have to reschedule the interviews. That's process number one. We take that off your plate. Process number two is we now have to go out of our way to actually ramp them up and set them up on all your systems. So this includes your RingCentral phone number. You probably still have a personal phone number that you're using that you want to go out of your way to have an office line. That needs to get set up. We have to set up your scheduling link with Calendly. We have to set up your email. We have to set up your workspace, your CRM. All that entire system process requires logins, requires handholding. That's an entire thing in itself. You're going to have to do that from scratch. And then if you go out of your way to go ahead and set that up correctly, well, now you have to train them on your entire business. And I think this is where agents forget. To train someone on something from scratch it could take not hours, not weeks, but months. And a lot of agents forget how long they've been doing something that it's so simple to them. If you don't document it, putting it into an SOP and record a training video on how to do it, it's like the blind leading the blind. So a lot of agents go through this entire process. They do it themselves. The assistant is terrible. They ghost them. They don't answer them back. Something happens. They end up quitting. And then they just assume, you know what? Assistants don't work. Let me go try something else like buying leads. And that is the craziest philosophy ever. Because that's like me and you going to the dentist. We have a bad experience. And we're like, you know what? Never going to the dentist again. Or me and you go get a haircut. Terrible haircut. Never getting a haircut again. Oh, bad assistant. Never getting an assistant again. That's the reality of it. So we go ahead to just go ahead and fix that entire problem by doing the entire thing for them. And then here's the best part. After they're onboarded, we handle payroll, we handle HR, we handle everything that has to do with managing them, and we hold them accountable and we coach them. So we just kind of took that entire process and said, you know what? If you want to try it on your own, go out there and good luck and see how that works out for you in 3 months. And you could go out there and waste 60 to 100 hours of your time trying to do that process yourself. And God forbid they leave, then you have to do it all over again. Whereas with us, we will do the entire thing from scratch. And if they leave, we have your systems and we'll restaff you for free. Okay. So that's from my business angle in terms of how I kind of taking your freemium model and use it to really sell the advantage of working with us versus doing it on your own. And then when it comes to doing it on your own in the real estate world, what I would do if I would break it into real estate from scratch again, is I would go out of my way to start recording educational content on how to find deals. Okay. There is this entire world and this entire blue ocean of people from high school, from college, from our past jobs, from our church, from our community that still doesn't know the process of how like Zillow works. So like they think if they go on Zillow and they just inquire about a property on 123 Main Street, that the listing agent is going to call them. And that's not how it works. There's a process where like they have to go through like the premier agent, and then you have to go ahead and go through this entire process and all of those things. So I would create an entire educational podcast segment series or anything on teaching people how to find deals below market value. And then once you go out of your way to do that, you put a little disclaimer. By the way, you will have to go out of your way to have access to property websites with all the data. You will have to have access to owners' phone numbers. You will have access to a large marketing budget to do all of that stuff. So if you want to skip all of this stuff and you want me to do it for you, then you just give me a call. And that could be a really good hook to lead into the Done For You service.
Man, it's that approach is so brilliant. And if you have solid content that's watchable, and then there's a hook, like I've been so impressed with products or services that get me to the like all I want to do is find out how much the cost is. And when I get there, I have this image of what I think it's going to be. And then I get there, I'm like, I'm probably not going to spend money on that. And then, but they've captured me already. They've captured my eyeballs. So I see their stuff more, and they've captured my email. So they get some. And at first you get annoyed, but if it's worth investing in, if it's worth your time and you're kind of like it, you don't mind that your algorithm's picked up on it because you want to do or experience that thing. And so you've given them permission. And I actually really appreciate that, because now I've got a whole algorithm of content that's tailored to me that gets me in the right place to have a better experience, life or business. And so I think that's what we're trying to accomplish, either as agents or vendors, is making the journey a much better and more enjoyable product. Man, I'm like building a house. If you build a house and you've got the builder does not respond at all throughout the process, so you're pulling your hair out, but you get to the end and it's built and it's like the expense was under what you thought it was. Most people, I think, would be like, as long as it's cheaper than what I thought and the product's good, then cool. But man, if you have two people side by side and it's about the same product, but one of them calls you back and for 6 months you don't have anxiety, like at some point, not having anxiety for every decision you make in your life trumps how much money you can save on something.
Correct.
So that's where I'm at on that. Okay, so you're talking about specifically for you at Gold Bar Staffing. Now, before you move into that, you were from New York and moved to Orlando, which is a very drastic thing to do. What prompted that?
It was actually a pretty interesting scenario. I was locked up during COVID. I had a beautiful apartment that I was able to negotiate for like 40 cents on the dollar. It was overlooking Manhattan. It was basically like my dream apartment that I had. And long story short, I got a great deal on it. And then when the lease came due in 2021, the landlord came to me and he's like, hey, like, you want to renew? You could stay. It's no problem. I'm like, absolutely. How much is it? and they're like, we're going to bump you up 120%. So whatever I was paying, they wanted to charge me almost double and a half just because the rates went back up and COVID went away and people were out and about. And I was like, listen, I'm not going to pay more than 2.5 times for the same exact apartment. So I kind of started having a little introspective moment. I said, you know what? Where do I actually want to live long term? And when I looked at every single part of the country, I really just came down to something resonating with me in Florida. I love the fact that there's no state income tax. The weather is beautiful during the wintertime. You're close to the beaches. There's so much stuff to do. So I said, let me start exploring Florida. Started off in Miami. There was just way too much going on. It was kind of like New York meets Florida, but no one's really, like I said, sleeping. It's still this hustle culture nonstop. And I was like, you know what? I'm at a point in my life where I kind of want to slow down. West Palm and then Fort Lauderdale were a really good option. Very young, very vibrant community, very, very fun over there. And then I looked into Palm Beach and Naples. That was kind of like something where I felt like a little bit like not there yet. Like if you're under the age of 60, you're still very young. And then Tampa was a good option, but I don't know, something about Orlando where I landed here. It was like at the center of the entire thing. I could be here in an hour, whatever it may be. And since then, I've noticed there's been a huge drive of people that have been moving here. It's a great place to live, and it's just an awesome community. So,
now, did you sell residential real estate by the time you got to Orlando, or were you already removed?
It's funny. By the time I got here, I was basically just managing my team at that point, and my team was selling in Orlando for a year prior to me actually moving down here.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. How do you do that? How do you have a team that you recruited people before you even moved there?
Yeah. So I before I actually moved here, I wanted to start selling real estate here to see what the market was like. So I recruited a brand new agent that was here. He needed a lot of mentorship and guidance, so we trained them from scratch. And I would say 1 out of 5 people that were moving from New York wanted to move to Florida. So we already had a nice little referral pipeline going over there. And then once we went out of our way to start sending them referrals, we just walked them through our process to go ahead and do our consultations and work our CRM and everything over there. And then our transaction coordinator and our assistant from New York managed his entire business down there. So it kind of allowed us to work in 2 markets. We started growing that. And then by the time I came down here, we had an agent in Tampa, Miami, Central Florida, and all of New York as well.
What do you think the future of expansion teams is? Because I've had a lot of realtors on the show or team leaders on the show that will talk about having a team in a different state that they're just getting licensed and getting agents in other states, some of which are working for 2 different brands because the brand doesn't exist in the second city. So I'm in Minneapolis, I work for KW, and then I get a second brokerage in Oklahoma and I'm working with Remax there. Like that would be super confusing. What do you think the future of because of the digital age and because of the ease of coaching someone over Zoom, we're seeing a ton of acquisitions from the brand level, Berkshire Hathaway, buyouts, that kind of thing. But what do you think about the team level? Like, what is the future of expansion teams?
I think the future of real estate is teams in general. They have the ability to control so much of the processes when it comes to which mortgage lender people are using and how often you're growing in certain markets, because you could go ahead and do like special recruiting events, and like the teams nowadays I think have a lot of control when it comes to building their business and scaling to different markets. But what I'm seeing more often is a lot of these agents are just basically like operating virtually, and they're recruiting in different states and then taking their systems and processes that work in one market and just giving it to the other agents to use. So I do think that in the future, you're going to have like one big corporate team leader kind of running like a C-suite with a TC, an executive assistant, an admin coordinator, and something like that. And then they're going to be the ones supporting all the other markets that they're in. And then the brokerage is just going to be serving more as kind of like the technology component and the infrastructure and the compensation. But who knows where that ends up, because I've seen some teams do more volume than actual brokerages. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that stuff plays out.
I didn't prompt you for this question. And I'm just curious if you know anything about it or what your thoughts are. So sorry to put you on the spot, but I think it's really interesting. I've been talking to some broker owners of rather large or mid-sized, depending on what part of the country you're from. Like if you look at Indianapolis, 1,000 agents is significant. Like that's, between 800 and 1,000 agents in one specific office or brokerage is big. So anything over like 300 is significant. And one of the broker owners of a pretty big brand, top 5 brand in Indy, was telling me that they're starting their own title company. They're starting their own mortgage company because they can't keep up. They can't make money owning a brokerage, just, coaching and housing agents. And so I think about the end game here. Now you're creating a title company and a mortgage company to compete with your best partners and affiliates. What's the end game here? If I'm a mortgage broker, if I'm a mortgage company and I'm giving dollars for all your parties so that I can call on your agents and all this stuff, but now you're competing with me and keeping me out, what's the end game in all this?
It's so crazy because I just don't recommend it because I've done it myself. I started a JV with a title company, and I realized that the amount of money that I was making from the title company after ownership and profit splits and expenses and all of that stuff, it was insignificant in comparison to the referrals that I received from all the title reps that I worked with previously. So same thing on the mortgage side. The second you go out of your way to try to start your own mortgage company, unless you have an insane amount of volume that you're doing, and you have an insane amount of control, because it's very hard for a brokerage to actually funnel a specific business to a lender that they're working with. It's one of those things where that mortgage lender, what they could bring in value in terms of events and sponsorships, and just referrals when it comes to like sending you clients and agents and all of that stuff, I just don't think it's worth it. So I'm a big believer in having 2 or 3 solid lending partners, 2 or 3 solid title companies, attorneys, inspectors, architects, everything on that side, and just sticking to your main focus. And for the brokerages that are saying it's impossible to make money off the brokerage, well, you're not wrong. The average brokerage is either breaking even or running at like 5% net margins when all is said and done. So that's where it's kind of time to kind of start reconsidering, like, is this whole brick and mortar model making sense for what I need to do in order to scale? And that's where I would consider, like, for a lot of brokers to start looking into a more of a virtual way for them to expand into other markets, reduce their costs, but still be able to provide a lot of value to their agents.
We got a little bit of time left here, and one reason that your story resonates with me is our stories are similar, and the fact that, you know, I was doing one thing, selling closing gifts to realtors, and started a side hustle that ended up becoming so big it had to become my full time, and now it's what most people know me for. And so you did a very similar trajectory where you made it big in real estate and started a side hustle, side project, or side excitement about something adjacent to real estate, but then use your knowledge and what you learned and connections to start the side hustle. And now that's what you do full time. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what are you doing now? It's a staffing company, Gold Bar Staffing. Like, how did that come about from real estate?
So basically the staffing came across because I had the coaching company, and a lot of my clients just didn't have the time to go out of their way to start doing what I was telling them to do to reach their goals. So we just started doing it for them. And the only way to do it for them that was scalable was to actually hire, train, and manage the employee or the assistant that was going to go into their business and help them scale. And it started out with us just doing it when it came to like people that wanted more appointments set. And then it started out where people wanted to get more help when it came to recruiting. But the biggest challenge that we found was people's most of their time was being consumed on administrative work or personal things like their inbox, their email. I can't stress that enough. That's like such a time waster. Their calendar, scheduling appointments, coordinating calls, confirming meetings that they had, their CRM, things like that. So when we started kind of leaning a little bit more into the EA role, we realized like there's no one that really specializes in this. Like, who out there specializes in staffing you with a qualified assistant specifically for real estate, specifically in the executive assistant side, and then continues to manage, coach them, and train them until they basically become like your ops manager. And that's where I was like, you know what? Let me carve that out. Thankfully, we're up to 50 clients. All of our clients are top producers making between $100K a year on the low end to over $1 million a year in GCI. And now our goal really is just to scale it out. It's not to go out there and work with everyone. We're looking to work with the top 1% of agents who are serious about breaking more than $1 million a year. And we're looking to work with the agents that want to have a life. They want to get to that point in their business where they could actually spend time with their family and hang out with their kids and go do what they do when it comes to their passion and their hobbies. But that becomes a really tough challenge to do if you're still doing everything yourself. So if you are listening and you want to learn more, I would recommend coming out to RP Elevate. Because all of you don't know this, but Gold Bar Staffing is actually one of the biggest sponsors for this conference. And it's a conference that I'm really excited about because it's the very first conference that Real Producers is doing on a national level, and they are going to crush it. So we're going to be there. Gold Bar is going to be there. But not only that, the top agents, coaches, speakers are going to be there. And I think this is going to be one for the books, and it's really going to set off this national, like I said, tour that's going to just take over the world when it comes to like value, events, coaching, conferences. It's going to be awesome.
I think so too, man. And there's going to be a couple webinars leading up to that we're joining each other on. One coming up with Ken Posick from your market. Actually, I think it's next Tuesday or the Tuesday after. We'll put it in the show notes. But just talking about YouTube, $100 million in YouTube, how to use that for Relo. Like those types of webinars are, when I watch that, I'm like, where can I get more of that? Where can I meet these people? RP Elevate's the place to do it. So you're going to be at RP Elevate. You're going to be up on stage with me. Gold Bar Staffing, which great company. We use them ourselves. Just big fan of everything that you've accomplished in such a short amount of time. But what you figured out is solving problems for people. Like there, I said it at the top of the hour, like at some point you realize I can learn to do this all myself, or I can trust the person who I can pay to do it for me. And that's where we've landed in our business time and time again. So Juan, where can we find you?
I would say if you're interested more on the staffing side, go to goldbarstaffing.com. And if you want to learn more about how we could connect or work together at scale, Instagram is best at Juan, Juan, Gold Bar.
So if you're 29 and you're like, I'm done selling houses and I want to become a millionaire and start a new business, this is the episode for you. Send it to another 29-year-old who could also learn from this episode. And if you want to impact who we have on the show or what we talk about next, email us at podcast@realproducersmag.com. That event that Juan was talking about is September 29th and 30th this year, the first RP Elevate ever in Dallas. We'll see you there. Thanks for being on, Juan.
Thank you, brother. We'll talk soon, man.